It's still this morning on ITV, and we're reaching you directly from Benin City here. I did also tell you that we are going to look at social amenities in Nigeria and see the challenges in some of these social amenities. Well, I remember those days in the primary school when we say social amenities, the first thing that comes to mind, amenities like pipe-borne water, good roads, good hospitals, good sporting facilities, and of course electricity. That was in our own time. We remember pipe-borne water. But children of these days, if you ask them to mention social amenity, I don't know if they can mention pipe-borne water, because the issue of pipe-borne water in our environment, in our society, in Edo State, in Benin City, where I have lived almost all my life, is almost a forgotten issue. I mean, I don't know of any area that we still have pipe-borne water. And it's a very big challenge. It's a big concern, most especially for people that actually grew up with the idea of pipe-borne water, having the supply of pipe-borne water as a social amenity. Looking at social amenities and challenges this morning, we are so privileged to have Nowita Igbotako. He's a human rights activist, a serial author, policy expert, and you know, somebody that, he's not a politician, I will always say so, but when it comes to political issues, he can really dissect some of these issues. So you're welcome to this program this morning on ITV.
Thank you very much.
And of course, we have Mr. Tayo Adekunle, who is the head of corporate affairs of BEDC Electricity PLC. So you're welcome to this program this morning on ITV.
Good morning.
Yeah.
And good morning, viewers.
Okay, we'll just start with Mr. Nowita Igbotako. I hope I did not say wrong when I said social amenities. I mentioned pipe-borne water in our time, but these days you hardly mention pipe-borne water as a social amenity. Let's start it from there.
You are very correct, because I remember when I was growing up, I grew up in the West, precisely Oshobo, where you have Osun State now. I remember we used to have, you know, pipe-borne water, pipe-borne water, and we were enjoying it. And light was relatively okay at that time. But as you said, some people all their life, they don't see any water coming out from the pipe. So it used to be. That period was about late 60s, you understand? So early 70s. Those things were there. The things that came a bit after independence. But when the political class with the military class, when they came to power, because of bad leadership, because of unfocused policies that are not meant to better the lot of the people, because of lack of direction, everything has collapsed. It's unfortunate. What do the other people enjoy in this country? I have a borrow in my house. Most people use borrow to service, to get water. It is unfortunate that nothing seems to be working. Even the electricity system, there's a lot of complaints. Nothing is working. Things seem to have collapsed. People are not happy with what is happening. And there are a lot of factors, have contributed to this tragic situation. It is tragic that it's good that we have the BEDC in mind here, because to tell us certain things. So we don't, the ordinary people in this country, we don't enjoy nothing. The little that the government has put in place seems to have collapsed. So it's unfortunate.
All right. Mr. Tayo Adekunle, I don't know whether you have something different, because from the way he spoke, he talked about the absence or the non-availability of some of these basic social amenities that we once knew. We don't have them anymore. So we really don't know what is going on. What do you think is responsible for this?
Well, first and foremost, let's look at the fundamental issue. There's a social contract which the government has with the governed, which is the populace, the citizens. And this presupposes that in exchange for their sovereignty and freedom, the government is supposed to provide certain things to give mutual protection to the citizenry. And the contract implies that these things, which of course border on amenities, social amenities, must be there, you know, for government to be seen to be servicing the citizenry very well. And the social amenities that we are talking about, like the activist said, first and foremost, there has to be job creation. What is the situation of that? The unemployment rate in the country is very alarming as we speak. We also talk about potable water. Like he has said, the government is supposed to provide potable water for the citizenry. But what you have now, most people, you know, dig deep wells and boreholes when you complete your house or even in the public place. In fact, some people commercialize borehole because public water infrastructure is not functional. In addition to that is electricity, which is a sector which I come from. The issue is electricity is a major one because it has multiplier effect on the economy on the other hands. First and foremost, the fundamental issue is poor generation or low generation. There's a rule of thumb which says that for every 1 million population, there must be 1,000 megawatts of electricity generated to service such a population. And that is the way it is all over the world. Take, for instance, South Africa, with a population of less than 50 million. They generate more than 46,000 megawatts of electricity. That's why the light does not blink there. The same with developed economies like Britain, like Germany, France, and the rest, Canada. But in Nigeria, what we generate is less than 5,000 megawatts for a population in excess of 180 million. That is a major, major, major problem with electricity. And that's why when people complain about electricity, we don't even generate what can even service us.
Yeah, but I know that you are from the power sector,
yes.
So there's no doubt when you talk about generation and all that. But let us look at other social amenities.
Yes, actually, let's also look at
electricity is
housing.
Not the only.
Let's look at housing, for instance. As of 2015, 24.4 million people were homeless in the country. The issue of roads. Look at the issue of roads, except now that the federal government is prioritizing some roads because the roads link up the cities. And they also allow the economic activities to also, you know, take place. The major link road, like Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, if you know the volume of vehicular traffic on that road and the links, you know, connecting the hinterland, the major cities, the Niger east-west zone axis, the road is not yet completed now. Even intra-city roads, local government roads, which are supposed to be basic things that government should do for the citizenry, they're in a state of disrepair. And that's why we have a lot of accidents. And the concomitant of government's inability to provide the social amenities has given rise to a lot of issues. First, we have low life expectancy. Life expectancy in this part of the world is even less than 50 years. Whereas in developed economies, it's more than that. An average person who's supposed to live maybe up to 60 years, even in some countries like Poland, 70 years and all that. But in Africa, even Nigeria, is lower, it's less than 50 years. Because of the collapse of, you know, public infrastructure and social amenities that government is supposed to provide. The illiteracy level is also high. Because directly related to that, the government is supposed to also provide some social institutions like hospitals, like schools and all that. That's why we have a lot of illiteracy. That is also there. Then the issue of even water. That's why you have increased waterborne diseases and the rest. Maternal health, you know. These are, you know, they have gone very, very bad.
Like the issue of water, where do you think the government has gotten it wrong? I mean, I grew up with pipe-on water, but these days almost in the whole country, we don't have it anymore. What do you think is responsible for that in Nigeria?
I think government lost its priority because there are basically three sectors.
Yes.
There's the public sector, which is made up of government. There's organized private sector. Then there's also the social sector where, you know, my activists
is from here.
The public sector, which is government, has no business being business. Then when they want to engage in the, you know, construction of some of this infrastructure, there's what we call public-private partnership. But when government surrenders its responsibility to the private sector without proper guidance, some of these things will collapse, and the commercial interests will also take over. When in the 70s, in the 80s, we also used what we had the water corporation, water boards, and across all the states.
Is that what you think that is happening in the power sector?
Well, the issue of power sector is a more deeper one. First, there has been a lot of neglect over the years as per addressing the issue of power sector. Then it now became apparent that the capital needed to make the electricity sector work is not something that the government alone can do. That was why they unbundled the defunct PACN and allowed private investors to come in.
Yeah.
Now, the power sector is a value chain. There are three major arms. We have the generation arm comprising of generation companies, of which there are some that government has ownership in. The rest are privately owned. Then two, there's the TCN, Transmission Company of Nigeria, which transports whatever is generated to the national grid, like a basket, like a pool, where the discos, 11 of them, now peak load on daily basis. They are the tail end of the chain. They are the one that interface with the customers. They are the one that also collect money from customers. But the dilemma is that because customers see them, they are the face of the power sector. Every other issue, every other problem in the sector is, heaped on them. And there are issues. For instance, they don't have enough power to circulate, because when we are supposed to be generating not less than 180,000 megawatts as a country. We are talking about 5,000. And each of these discos, 11 of them, have their MITO allocation. BETC, for instance, gets 9% of allocation. And that 9% is going to share among 4 states. It's going to share with Edo, Delta, Ondo, and Ekiti states. Edo gets more than 40% of what is generated. And yet it's not enough. Edo alone should, to be able to service Edo alone, not less than 1,000 megawatts, is required. But that is where we have found ourselves. Yes, government is doing all its best to increase generation, but we are not even near where we are. In fact, the minimum we should be talking about now is even 20,000 megawatts, whereas we are still oscillating between 5,000. Yes, there's capacity for 7,000, like the minister said, but the facility, the equipment, the reality on ground cannot transmit.
Okay, let me pause you because let's look at all that, because it's not look as if we're just looking at BDC, looking at
housing is also there.
Now, let me come to Nowita. Nowita, okay. I think from what Mr. Tayo has said, he talked about that the government, gave rise for privatization, and at a point the government left it alone. Now, is it that at that point that government really, lay their hands off, trying to let it be that, okay, let the private hands continue? Is that the reason why we have failure in some of the provision of these basic amenities that we're talking about?
The issue is very clear. When you have a leadership class that is not pro-people, he mentioned it, misplaced priorities. When you have a government that doesn't seem to care about the people, because forgetting that without the people you can never get to power. Social responsibility.
Social contract.
Social contract, that's a correct term. Social contract. When you have government that seems to have lost it, that's a social contract. You see government that is insincere with the wishes and aspirations of the people, the mass of the people. Because we know what happened. We know what killed Water Corporation. Corruption. Money will be budgeted for things and it will end up in people's pockets. What do you expect? That what killed the Water Corporation. Every attempt to be made to resuscitate a government the other day, I don't want to mention the government, went to Slow, did one or two things. What are we? Nothing has happened. The thing has settled in people's pocket. What happened to the power sector? He has said, but the power sector is a very vital, electricity is a vital sector in this country that has a multiplier effect. With power sector, economy will run well. A lot of people are running generators, diesel, instead of getting access to electricity for the government. What happened in the power sector? Wicked leadership. People who have forgotten that the people are issue. People for the government have. Look at the level of corruption. Look, you mentioned that capital is an issue in the power sector. Is it that Nigeria doesn't have money to be pumped into the power sector? How much money have been pumped into the power sector in Nigeria? And we know, and the story continues. And some of these people that have embedded this money, they are still trained themselves up to be elected in the next general election. So the issue is bad leadership. The issue is corruption. The issue is the people who are supposed, our leaders, so to say, they are not interested in the social contract with the people. So, and corruption is a factor.
Okay.
And that's okay. After the power sector was unbundled, we know what happened. Most of the companies that got the license to run these things, we know they are cronies of government. We know we are in the civil society. We know there are people, there are lickers of government that's behind the scene. They got this contract, and they don't even have the expertise to run these things. And companies that are qualified to do these things are not in the know. They are not involved. So corruption, left, right, and center, misplaced priorities has brought us to this mess.
Okay. Now, Mr. Tayo, we are looking at some of the challenges in the provision of these social amenities, you know, so that everybody, the non-provision of these social amenities now has become a big problem. Now, you will understand, you will recall rather that the issue of prepaid billing, it's a big problem with the BEDC. And as we speak now, we understand that the National Assembly even had to put a legislation to that effect. Now, at times, it looks as if that those in charge of these public amenities, social amenities, are even a big problem to the consumers, because some say it is those in charge of the social amenities or the government. So, what is really the issue, especially with this prepaid billing?
Well, the National Assembly, in its own wisdom, tried to protect the average consumer from, you know, being extorted over the issue of electricity consumption. And the argument is that if a consumer is supposed to pay for what is consumed, right, but if it does not have meter, which is supposed to measure what is being consumed. Now, the issue of estimated billing, they believe is an overkill. And that's why they initiated the bill to criminalize it. But on the other side, the operators of the electricity firms are also saying that if a customer does not have a meter and is being billed direct, there must be a way to calculate the bill to be given to such a customer. Now, there are two sides to it. For underestimated billing, there's a standard format which the regulator has put in place. But a customer could either be underbilled or overbilled. In most cases, people complain when they're overbilled. And we are saying there are issues connected with the issue of metering. For instance, presently as we speak, only 45% of electricity consumers in excess of 8.3 million throughout the country have been metered. The remaining 55% are yet to be metered. So government has put in place a provision, which is the meter asset provider MAP, who is supposed to accelerate the metering process for consumers. This metering scheme is supposed to commence before the end of the first quarter of this year. And the regulator has put a lot of measures in place. For us at BDs, for instance, we received 27 applications from independent parties who are interested in running the scheme, out of which they were screened, due diligence was done. They were now watered down to about 7. Out of the 7, we still have to do proper screening before we passed the ones that we felt suitable in terms of technical compatibility and financial muscle to be able to buy these meters, procure them, and circulate as much as possible. So now the regulator are putting finishing touches. And when this thing commences, the preponderance for estimated billing will reduce because a lot of people will be metered. In our own areas, for instance, we have commenced enumeration, enumeration is head count of customers within a regular particular location to know their the needs, the load, the consumption, and that. And we are using the corpers, 390 of them. We are using them to do so. We have enumerated 9 locations in Delta, 5 in Edo, 3 in Ondo, 1 in Ekiti as we speak. It's still a continuous exercise. Although the challenge is that when they get to some of those, we do meet them at home. When they do that, they will also do clearance of wire within those locations. Then they will now relocate some of the meters that are not suitable before they now do mass metering, space for space.
Okay.
It's a continuous exercise. So once this one is in place, the people that are metered, they will find a way to measure. So there won't be explicit billing for them. So the idea is that this bill is like carrot, is like stick to whip the disco into line. Then the carrot there is the map. So they will complement each other.
Okay.
So, you know, before the end of the year, you score that the cry about explicit billing will definitely reduce and, you know, and die down.
I'm afraid this is where we may have to cut this discussion this morning because of time factor. And be rest assured that subsequently on this program this morning on ITV, we should be able to come back so that we can talk more on these social amenities and see how governments can really help us, and for the handlers too, how they can really do their job well, so that all of us will enjoy you know, our social amenities. Well, the program is still on this morning on ITV. We'll take a short pause now. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you.
Yeah.